Welcome to Our Nation This Week. My name is Dean Allison. Did you realize that the video game industry is larger than Hollywood and North American sports combined? Think about that for a second. The gaming industry is larger than all professional sports in North America, which include the NFL, the NBA, Major League Baseball, NHL, and the movie industry combined. 2020 sales are expected to finish at over $180 billion in revenue globally. And it doesn't look like this industry is about to slow down anytime soon. Now, depending on your age group, I'm guessing you'll have a different perspective on what you expect the industry to look like. When I mention the gaming industry, what comes to mind? Is it the Nintendo 64? I may be dating myself a bit here, or is it the Xbox? And what about some of those games that you find on your phone that are played late at night when you can't sleep? Or is it something that your kids use, like a Nintendo Switch? But I'm here to show you that the industry is so much more than that. Joining me on the show today is Scott Novis, an expert in esports. Scott, welcome to the show. So let's just talk.
Hey, thanks for having me here.
Let's just talk about the size of the industry. I mean, it blew me away when I started looking at what was going on in terms of dollars invested, participation, viewership, and all those kinds of things. I mean, you really surprised me by how the size of the industry.
Oh, yeah. People are usually taken aback. Like last year, and this actually goes back to 2019, more people watched the League of Legends, the international final, than the Super Bowl and the Final Four combined.
Wow.
So I'll try to make this relevant for your audience. The highest rated hockey game of all time was, I think it was the 2019 Game 7 Stanley Cup Finals, had 10.9 million unique viewers. 44 million unique viewers watched the fall Overwatch World Championships. So 4 times as many people watched a game you've never heard of than watched the highest rated hockey game of all time. So there's clearly something going on here.
Yeah, so I read an article on MarketWatch.com that just published a story literally 12 days ago, talking about what we just said about the size of the industry, $180 billion in 2020. So I do have a hard time believing that. Talk to me about how that breaks down. Obviously, there's video games. There's a whole bunch of things that go into that. There's hardware, all kinds of stuff. So why don't you talk to us a bit about what that looks like?
Yeah, there is that issue that if you took the movie industry and you included all television sales, and video games don't include television sales, but they do include the consoles, and they include game-specific computers. So there are some things that fluff that number up, but not a lot. What probably surprises people the most are cell phones, because the cell phone game industry is gigantic. And even the traditional game industry looks at, is mobile? Like, it's huge. But what part of this are we looking at? I think the piece that, or at least what I've gotten involved in, that has taken people by surprise, that is a $1 billion industry now, is competitive gaming. And that's the one that's beginning to just break the rules, and it's moving so fast. And I think that's the one people relate to, because that's happening in their home.
So competitive gaming. And
people go,
no, go ahead, finish your thought.
What is this?
Yeah, but competitive gaming, is that, is this something that people watch? Is this, obviously people participate. So give me a little bit of a breakdown of what that looks like.
So what that's turned into, and it was, I really noticed this like half a decade ago, where we started to see this sea shift in kids watching people play video games. I mean, it blew up with YouTube when people were watching instructional videos, but it really started to accelerate with games like Dota, League of Legends, where when you start filling stadiums with fans watching people play video games, there's something serious going on. And there's actually an entire trend in esport bars where it's like a sports bar, but they're showing you video game competitions. Why watch? And it's because you have a generation of people that are able to do the same thing we do with traditional sports, Dean. They understand the skills, they can project the outcomes, and they're just watching great competition between teams they follow.
Well, I'm guessing
that's global.
So I'm guessing that the pandemic has not really hurt the industry from that perspective. We got about 30 seconds left. So from stadiums, I guess they've gone to online to watch.
Yes, absolutely, 100%. And online tournaments, like on a scale we never imagined would happen before.
That's amazing. Listen, what we're going to do, let's go to a break. And we come back, I think we want to talk a bit more of your background. I mean, obviously you've got into this in a big way. Let's talk a bit more when we come back for break on what's going on in esports. right, I'm back with Scott Novis, and let's talk a bit about your background. I mean, you started a company called GameTruck about 15 years ago. So, what does that company do? And just share a little bit how you got started with that.
Well, I got started with that because I felt like video games lost that public venue to play the best games with your best friends. You can tell my hair is gray. When you were tossing out games, I'm going Pac-Man, and I remember the arcades, and that went away. And so we envisioned a living room on wheels, because I felt the best games were console games. Home video games are so sophisticated, and you wanted a dream living room where there'd be enough TVs, controllers, copies of games for everybody to play. And I got lucky. I was right. That launched an industry, and we've done 300,000 parties and entertained over 10 million kids over the last 15 years. And through that time, I really started to notice as like esports exploded, and there's a couple other macro trends that are happening that are kind of amazing in a way, the scale of them. But I would see the impact a game coach would have. So here's an adult who loves video games and the impact they had on the kid at a party, and the kid never forgot it. I just got an email from a mom from like 10 years ago when we launched in Atlanta. Her son still has never forgotten the birthday that he had with us and the coach that worked the party. And like, we need to work with these kids more than 2 hours a year. So we created we pronounce it bravest. And the idea was to create leagues and opportunities for kids that maybe aren't in traditional sports to have the same kind of experience, to come together, make a friend, and learn how to compete, and honestly, have a bright future.
Well, it sounds pretty, it almost sounds to me like you have the dream job that most kids would think that would be pretty cool. You started with gaming and then have turned it into something more than that. Talk a bit more about what Bravest Esports does. You talk about that social experience and how that works. So give me your vision for Bravest.
Well, one of the things we noticed is that, according to the Aspen Institute, by, I think it was January of 2020, 70% of 11-year-olds are falling out of team sports. I saw it at my middle school where 140 kids went out for the baseball team, 14 made it, and the next year only 20 went out. Where did the other 130 kids go? So where are they falling? They're falling into games. And to keep kids safe online, games will systematically isolate them. They'll never introduce you to somebody you don't already know who could walk over to your house and meet you. It's too dangerous. So how do you make a friend? How do you meet somebody you could hang out with? So we envision Bravest as being the kind of program that we could work with Boys and Girls Clubs, cities, municipalities, create community centers where we already have these buildings that nobody's hanging out in. They're watching the enrollment decline. They're safe spaces run by people who care. Let's create a program that kids want to have, which is video games. But let's do it in a competitive way. Let's bring in adult coaches who can teach them and mentor them. And ultimately, we're creating that same kind of opportunity that we used to get from traditional sports. And so that was our vision for the program. And since COVID hit, interestingly, where it's really gone is into colleges and universities, because we create engaged communities, people playing together with their friends. And right now, that's a huge issue. Everybody's studying from home. When do you get to hang out and play with just your group? And that's what we do really, really well, is bring people together to play with their friends. So it's about human connection.
Yeah, and so when it comes to esports, I mean, give us a scope of the size. I think you talked about it being over $1 billion industry, but talk to me about the competition and all that stuff that goes along with that. I mean, you talk about the sense of community. We got a minute and a half left. Tell me about what the opportunities are as people get into these esports.
Well, what you're looking at is a brand new industry that materialized. It feels like out of thin air. There are competitors that are earning more money in a month than Tom Brady earns in a year as a professional football player. And that blows people's minds. But what's happening is, imagine Apple Music, where all of a sudden, like the broadcast infrastructure is now Twitch, and it's more direct. And the audience, like if you don't know what Twitch is, I would encourage every parent, everybody listening, go onto Twitch and check it out, because it likely is going to be the future of media. Because we told this generation, don't be consumers. We thought it was stuff. They also think it's content. They want to participate. They want to co-create. They want to feel like they're a part of what's happening. And that's what's drawing everybody in globally. So when you look at the scale, you have there's the giant games. So Dota and League of Legends dominate in terms of earnings, winnings, and audience. So that's like Canada and California. And then you get Texas is Overwatch and Call of Duty might be New York, so really big states. But it's like track and field. There's not one game. And that's what surprises people. It's lots of different games. And some of them they're pretty small, but people are very passionate. I think we joked about at the Olympics, like, who watches the shot put? The family of the people that are doing the shot put and people that are really into it.
Well, we come back.
So we always have it.
We got to cut for break. When we come back, let's continue this conversation. Okay, I've got Scott Novis joining me here today. We're talking about esports and the gaming industry and all that kind of great stuff. So before we went for break, we started talking about some of, how big this industry is starting to get and what's going on in terms of prize money and stuff. And I think you made a statement that almost caught me off guard there. You said the prize money, there are people actually making more money from playing games than guys like Tom Brady. Really? I mean, is there many of these people making this kind of money? Like, what exactly is going on?
If you Google the top 100, this is what's so interesting. Google the top 100 esport teams or esport athletes, and you're going to get a list. Also do that for women. And there's no male and female division in esports. And so what you're seeing is, I was at the Phoenix Open with an owner of one of the professional esports teams, and he said, take out the top 3 people at the Phoenix Open, and he goes, everyone on my esports team earns more money than any professional golfer here.
Wow.
That's how much money is flowing around. And so this is where you're seeing the economics of this is rapidly self-assembling, and it's rippling through not just the professional industry, but also the colleges and the university. Most parents aren't aware that over 200 colleges now give tuition assistance or scholarships for esport athletes. And that happened in just 3 years.
Scholarships for e-sport athletes. That's incredible.
Yep.
Wow.
It's incredible. And I do want to make sure from the last segment, I am not dissing shot put at all. It's really about what you're into. There's room for you here. That's how big the industry is. And its diversity is probably its greatest strength. It's one of the most inclusive things you can do because it only matters what you do. There's the size, the height, the diversity of it is incredible. I think the Hearthstone world champion is a female.
Well, I think, go ahead. No, finish your thought there.
Well, it's that, what's the function of sports? Like, why did I get into this?
Right.
I'm an old Little League coach. And for me, it was always, where is it safe for kids to fail and learn from failure and learn from adversity and participate. And what we started to see with kids falling out of sports, we wanted to create a thing that was, yes, you can play. If you show up, you're going to play. Like, we're never going to turn a gamer away if we can help it. And we wanted, I believe, like Wooden said, competition is about teaching people to perform under pressure, to be their best when their best is most needed. And that's a really transferable skill. So we think we can do that with competitive video gaming and give those kids the opportunity to help each other learn from failure and adversity, and really a lot of good social things I think could come out of it.
Well, that's one of the things that impressed me. We talked before, you talked about the huge North American culture on sports, right? And the ability to participate. Mm-hmm. You talked about the fact that a lot of, high schools, universities, there's not a lot of teams necessarily could participate in, right? Like you said, all the people. And so you were concerned about the isolation, right? The loneliness and the fact that kids couldn't participate. And so that's why you've seen gaming as so much more than just entertainment. You've seen it as, your goal has been to, have parents see this in a different way. Talk to me about your vision for adults and parents getting more involved as it relates to esports versus actual sports.
Right. So what happened, at least in the United States that I'm aware of, is that team sports became the de facto way to socialize and exercise your child. And a lot of parents are afraid of video games because we know the 3 tropes. Makes kids fat, makes them angry or addicted, and it's a waste of time. And what we're trying to do is give parents good information because they still let their kids game. So if you're going to game, then make it productive. And so most gamers are into individual activities, and there's really good ways to help your kid be healthy. And we're big advocates for athlete health because what's the most important part of your body for competition? Your brain. So the best way to have a smart brain is have a healthy body. But when you move into gaming, we want parents to build a bridge into their gamers' world. Gamers are facing hard problems, developing skills, and persisting until they overcome. So there's one message I tell your audience is please don't tell your kids gaming is a waste of time. Because they don't hear games are a waste of time. They hear facing hard problems, developing skills, and persisting is a waste of time. And that's not a message parents want to send. So we're like, ask your kids, treat it like a job. What was hard about that for you? What was difficult? And as they build that bridge and they see what their kids are experiencing, the next phase is build the bridge to the future. How will those skills translate into the work and into society, into the hard problems we all have to go solve? This next generation is going to have to fix all the things that, we're struggling with now. And showing them how persistence and skill development and willingness to take on hard challenges is valuable, I think, is a message that all parents would like their kids to embrace.
Well, I think that's great. And when we come back from break, let's expand on that thought a little bit. Let's talk about some of the things that this can lead to in terms of the future. So when we come back from break, we'll address that topic. Joining me on the show today is Scott Novis, and we're talking about esports and gaming and all those kinds of things that maybe most people weren't quite aware of. Just before the break, Scott, you and I were talking about the benefits of a parent being involved in their son or daughter's life, when it comes to gaming, and how that can build a relationship. And we also want to talk a bit more about what that can lead to afterwards. So finish that thought on that, and let's talk about what that means for the future, after, say, high school or post-secondary.
Right. Well, I got this from Jane McGonigal. She told me at an event that 9 out of 10 parents will watch their kids play traditional sports, but only 1 out of 10 will actually play a video game with them. And I'm a huge advocate. I tell parents, play games with your kids. And don't worry about the failure. In fact, they need to see you fail and how you're going to handle it so you can role model it for them. And it's not that failure is a success. They just need to know they're going to be okay. And where can that lead to? What's the bridge to the future? Well, I mentioned the colleges. What's really interesting is that 47% of esport athletes at college are majoring in STEM degrees. That's an incredible statistic. That means you have people, I use the word STEAM. So science, technology, engineering, art, and math. And really, competition is supposed to prepare us for the future. So what does your job look like? My company, men and women work together. We use technology every day. It's globally competitive. We are super inclusive. We're trying to bring in the best people from anywhere that we can. And most important, we have no bench. There's no room full of qualified people just sitting there waiting for the opportunity to contribute. Everybody's expected to contribute and bring their best. And esports has all of those attributes. So I believe one of the number one reasons esports is exploding the way it is, this next generation is intuited, that looks more like their future than traditional sports does.
So when you talk about scholarships and some of those things happening in the U.S., are those towards engineering, science, and tech as well? Are those the fields, or what? Yes. I guess they're offered up pretty much in everything, right?
Yeah, the collegiate market is kind of interesting because it's split into 3 pieces. There's the traditional elite competition for elite athletes, like so at athletics department, but almost half of all esport programs are in student life because they're realizing engaged students graduate, and creating esport programs is creating more student engagement. Courtney James at DePaul runs a program that has over 2,000 students participating in it right now, which is an amazing accomplishment. And, that's got to be on par with almost any or eclipse most intramural programs I'm aware of. And so that engagement creates connection in the university and people go on and graduate. But the jobs that are available, project management, production, sound design, broadcast, there are streamcasters right now, people, full-time professionals. One of the people who works for me, I joke, he's the Al Michaels of Super Smash Brothers. He makes it super entertaining to watch people play Smash Brothers. Those are all legitimate careers that are forming right now in the video game industry. Some of these esport athletes aren't even getting a chance to graduate. When we started in 2018, the captain from ASU and her entire team, notice I said her and her entire team, were hired away by esport arenas that are being built around the country because they needed qualified event planners to operate these events. So this is a really dynamic, exciting industry. And there's not only jobs in the industry, there's the technical aspects lead to all kinds of industries, gamification, better software, all the tools we use to connect and play with. It's a really dynamic field.
That's great. We've got about 30 seconds left. So talk to me about coding, critical thinking, some of these things. Those are also things that kids are looking at as well, right?
Absolutely. Like one of the things about gaming and a lot of things we work on is problem solving. Having a growth mindset is being solution oriented. So when you get hit with a challenge, being energized by the effort you can put into solving that instead of intimidated. We want to build people that are great competitors. And that engineering problem solving process lends itself so well to so many of the things that we teach and what we do within helping develop great competitors. So there's a lot of overlap there. And I think that's why you see so many kids going into STEM fields when they're involved in esports.
Well, Scott, thank you very much for your time today. Really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks for having me on the show. It was a blast.
We learned something about the gaming industry today, realized that it is a multi-billion-dollar industry. So while your kids are playing esports or playing games, realize that there's probably some other opportunities for them, and maybe spend some time with them so that you can help them nurture some of the skill sets that they could take and use later on in life. Thank you for joining us this week.